My friends, the Lord is with you.
And also with you.
Thank you. A reading from the letter of James. Be patient, my sisters and brothers, until the appearance of Christ. See how the farmer awaits the precious yield of the soil, looking forward to it patiently while the soil receives the winter and spring rains. You too must be patient. Steady your hearts, because the second coming is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, my brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. As your models in suffering, hardships, and in patience, my sisters and brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Most High. My friends, the Word of God. Thanks be to God. So many of us might ask the simple question like, why do we call this Gaudete Sunday? Right? Or where does it come from? Let me give you a little bit of background, okay? Gaudete Sunday, the third Sunday of Advent, it's called that because you have to realize we didn't used to have music. There weren't a lot of people who knew how to play organs, and we didn't have pianos in our homes like everybody does or did for a long time now. But many, many, many years ago, like 1500, in the 1500s, when the clergy would enter for liturgy, they would come reverence the altar, and when they gathered the people, they would start with what in Latin is called an introit, right? It was the repetition of a psalm, and they would invite the entire community to recite that psalm. And together, so it was a hymn, basically, but because we didn't have music, we said it instead of that. So that introit used to read this. It read, Gaudete in Domino semper, in terrum dico gaudete, which, when you translate that from Latin, it really says, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. So that's why they call this Sunday Gaudete Sunday. In the seminary, we actually used to celebrate Gaudeamus this week. It's we rejoice, Gaudeamus, and mus in Latin is we. Us audum. So we celebrate, and it really used to come at a great time because it was the week of finals, or the weekend before finals. So we partied hard, and then we went and did our finals, and then we all went home. It was actually a great time, wasn't it? We used to have a blast. But I don't know about y'all, but I really like this particular Sunday because for once, in the middle of Advent, God reminds us to rejoice. Rejoice. Rejoice always. Again, I say rejoice. As I prayed over these scriptures this week, I don't know why, but this hit me, my friends. I don't know if anybody has ever said, thank you. I don't know if anybody has ever thanked each and every one of you for your presence here. And if not, let me at least take that time to say that. To say thank you for your faith, your joy, your doubts, your fears, your hopes, your dreams. Because as a priest and as a presider of this community, you lift me to heights that are, I don't know, I can't say it. Lift me to heights that I can't even identify. So really, on Gaudete Sunday, I truly can say that I rejoice. I rejoice in you, and in your God, and in our God, and in the abundant grace that seems to fill this space every time we gather. Now, I think far too long, far too many of us, at least many, have approached faith and church and even God from a position of fear and trepidation and deprivation. And we can't help that because we were kind of raised with that, right? That was the God that I was taught, right? I don't know about y'all, but I kind of grabbed onto that God, and for many of us, it was a God that was pretty scary, you know? Because I always expected that God expected me to fail. You know, I was always going to fall short. I wasn't ever going to quite make it, right? It was a God that I always wanted to love, but I feared more than I loved. It was a God that tried to get me there, but I didn't know if I was going to ever make it. It certainly wasn't a God that the gospel, that closing line of the gospel says today. It said, who even the least in the kingdom is greater than John the Baptist. Do you ever come out with that? The least in the kingdom is even greater than John the Baptist, and no one has been born who is greater than John the Baptist, Jesus said. That's a pretty phenomenal thing to think that God looks at each and every one of us and says, you're awesome. Okay, that's Marty language, but you're awesome, and I love you, and I care about you, and you're even greater than John the Baptist. What an image to walk in and to walk with. But unfortunately, my friends, for many of us, and for many complicated reasons, many of us were raised with the gospel of fear rather than the gospel of grace. Somehow the church forgot that the good news is not that we are sinners and that God is out to get us, or just waiting for us to fail. Somehow the church forgot that first and foremost, you and I are a child of God, that we're loved and treasured and adored and embraced by a God who wants nothing more than to be loved in return. Unfortunately, for years the church focused on how we fail to return that love, but forgot the first part, that we first have to be loved, right? That we are children. Now, for the past several weeks, for some ungodly reason, and we really did not plan this as presiders and clergy, we didn't plan on how we were going to preach or even what we were going to say, but we've run into this razor wire image, right? This razor fences that we built between ourselves and our God and ourselves and one another. Corinne last week beautifully pointed out that image of how Eucharist, when it's shared, even when it crosses the border, when we have to reach between the razor wire, we start to break the cycle. We rip down the fence, if you will. We stop the fear that continues to dominate our lives. When we reach across that razor wire, when we reach through to and with one another. As I thought deeply about that, I thought this hit me. One cannot stop freedom and liberation and grace. We just can't stop it. Just ask Nelson Mandela. Look at all the stuff that happened around his celebration. We cannot stop freedom and liberation and grace. The only options we have, my friends, are one, to deny it, or two, to enjoy its blessings. That's all we can do. We can either deny that or live into its blessings. Someone once said to me, this isn't a table of radical hospitality, and I said, oh, how much I disagree. It is a table of radical hospitality because to this table, anyone and everyone is welcome. Rich or poor, educated or uneducated, young or old, those who are deep into the spiritual life and those who are just starting the spiritual life. Everyone is welcome at this table and in this community. We contribute, my friends, to the reign of God every time we gather. That's why I started by saying thank you. Every time we gather as a community of faith, we lift one another up. Every time we gather, we hold one another in the presence of God and in the presence of truth and love. And we contribute to the reign of God when we do that. I don't know about y'all, but I have this relationship with the angel of death. For some odd reason, I have been experiencing this angel a lot. Now, I used to think of it as scary, but I have gotten to befriend this angel a lot more in my life. The more I come to befriend that angel of death, the more I think, man, if I stand before the judgment seat of God, what do I want to be able to say? And if that happened to all of us tonight, I really firmly believe we could say exactly what Jesus said to John the Baptist. Yes, we were of a community. We were in a community in which the poor were fed. People were fed when they walked in the door. They were welcomed. There was no barriers placed in anybody's way. Anybody who needed prayer was given it and surrounded with it. People who asked for healing, for compassion, for grace, for forgiveness, we participated in all of that without limits and without any barriers. The season of Advent, my friends, in this season, I hope, and I really pray, that you and I can continue to cut down the razor wire that stands between us and our God. I have to tell you, I grew up on a farm. I can honestly tell you, if you cut razor wire, you cut barbed wire anywhere in a fence line, the only thing you can do is go to the fence post and retie it, and you have to string new wire. You can't restretch it. It just will not restretch. My hope, my prayer, is that we continue to cut the razor wire and not put up new wire. Let's not create any more barriers among us by anything that we do or say. Because in the end, I firmly believe this, in the end, God's love will rule, no matter what. We can either deny it, or we can participate in it happening. And we can actually lend a hand in it happening. And I hope and I pray that we do lend a hand. One of my really dear friends, by the name of Nelson Mandela, he said this: I've learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph forward.